So I have just finished up a sketchbook that's gone from July of 2022 to August of 2023, a little bit over a year. And so I wanted to do a quick flip through and show what I got done in here. I did this cover with my Posco acrylic paint markers. So that's how I got all this great color on this Ranger sketchbook. The sketchbook is by Ranger. There is a 5x8 sketchbook, and I really like the paper in here. It's very smooth and thick paper. So I'm a fan of Ranger. And this is my little stamp. I have a stamp now that I was able to stamp that on with one of my sketching friends got made for me. So I think that looks great. So 2022 started out with a wedding. And here is a sketch that I did. This was a Procreate. I did this on Procreate and then cut it out and stuck it on there to kind of cover up this title page, which was a little experimental with some of my brushes. And then it goes on to my actual wedding that I was at. This was some spray ink that I did in the background here for the wedding of Natalie and Andrew Kuhn. That was in July of 2022. Natalie, the bride. Then this is a church sketch. I really enjoy sketching during church. It keeps my mind awake. And the people I go to church with love to see my sketches. And if they sit in front of me, they're always making jokes about, are you going to sketch me during church? So this was a quick sketch I did during church. Then this is a vacation that we went on to New York. We pulled a camper, and this was an old house we saw. This is done with watercolor and ink, as most of these are. Finger Lakes always like to do a map sketch. This is my map sketch of that particular vacation. All the different rides we took. We went on motorcycles, so had some motorcycle rides. Every fire hydrant had these big, tall markers on the top, rods on the top, so that when the snow covers them up, the snow plows will not run over the fire plugs. So a boat that was sitting out in one of the Finger Lakes. I could see a church in the distance. And a little row of houses. These are actually not houses. These are garages for your boat. But I bought this little marker in one of the shops in New York. And then I reproduced her sketch using my photo. So that kind of was a little inspiration for this sketch. And I actually saw this in person. I didn't draw it from her sketch. I drew it from real life. So I have a little bit of a different angle. I think I didn't get quite as much as she got, but that was a nice inspiration. Her name is Dory Romanowski. This is another church sketch that I did. I misspelled discernment. I had to put a C in there. And after lunch, we went out to eat with friends that had, this was their little grandson at TJ's. Then I had my granddaughter's toy monkey here, and a trip to MedVet with my friend's butterfly ear dog, Isabeau. And so while we waited, I like to sketch at doctor's appointments. Ink and watercolor once again. This is a pedestrian bridge in Dublin, Ohio. And after we went to the vet, we stopped here at the Dublin pedestrian bridge and sketched. That's with my friend Lori, who's also a sketcher. This is a little buddy sketch I did with Natalie. Natalie is the bride. She said, "Can you teach me to sketch?" And I said, "Well, yes." So we went and sat behind her house where we could see a Bob Evans sign, and we did a tree. And I told her to write a little something to go along with it. So this was just kind of, she did it, I did it, and then we compared step by step in her backyard. While Lori was with me, we went over and sketched at Creekside and Gehenna. This is another buddy sketch I did with Natalie, the bride. And she lives next door to the church, and we could see these stained glass windows. And so that was her second sketch that she did along with me. She's a great sketcher. I wish I had her sketches to show. While Lori was visiting, Queen Elizabeth died. So we watched her funeral, and while we watched, we sketched Queen Elizabeth. And I wrote a little story about her. And I had this stamp of Queen Elizabeth. I got to put that on there. This is 1975 when Queen Elizabeth was the same age as what I am now. That's why I picked the 1975 photo to sketch from. And I sketched that while I watched her funeral. This is another buddy sketch I did with Merle. We went to a cemetery, the Green Lawn Cemetery in Columbus, and sketched a couple of things at the Green Lawn Cemetery. While we were sketching, a helicopter came over, probably on the way to the hospital. I always like to throw things in there like that. This is another sermon sketch. And this is my granddaughter with her nanny. This was done for a card, a thank you card for the nanny. A little sketch of my granddaughter. This is camping in the parking lot at Walmart. We were in a camper. I think we had a flat tire. I have another sketch where I have my husband out here changing our flat tire while we were at Walmart. We spent the night and we could hear the rumbling of all the other trucks in the parking lot. Here's some flowers on the Cross Florida Greenway, the bike trail below Marjorie Harris Carr State Park, which is where we camped. This was some of the flowers that were actually blooming in October of 2022. Some more of the flowers and things I picked up along the way. And we rode this bike trail that went from our whimsical RV park. You could go this way and go to Ocala, Florida, where there's all the kind of horses, or you could go this way and go to the state park. And there's a 15-mile paved ride that goes under Magnolia Avenue Bridge and under another bridge at 475 and under a bridge. You go over a bridge of I-75 and then you keep going to Dunellen. And we rode that whole way on the Cross Florida Greenway. It was a great bicycle ride, and there's horses that go along there as well. So that was quite a place for sketching. So this is our camp spot at Beverly Beach in Flagler, Florida. I sat out and sketched, and while I was sketching, the sky floated by. There's a flag flying. Big long shadows. So I went out and sketched that while my husband was setting the camper up. Vacation breakfast. A bee sting donut. A sticker from the breakfast shop, and they had these really fancy oatmeals. That was quite good. And there had just been a Hurricane Ian, and there was a lot of damage there. So I had the cones out, and it's near a military base, and so there was some flags flying over that. So my husband let me sit for 20 minutes and sketch this real quick. He doesn't have a lot of patience with my sketching, but he loves my completed sketches, but I have to go really fast when I'm with him. This is a sketch at the Columbus Urban Sketchers. We went out and sketched at, I think this is, I should have written it down, but this is called The Fort, and it's on High Street in Columbus. It's an old factory of some sort, and we went out there and sketched. And here's some of the sketches that got done. I sat underneath a bridge and sketched the old rusty water tower. And then I started this and didn't get done with it. Wish I had of. It would have been cool. This is another church sketch. It was Christmas time, and the church was decorated for Christmas. And this is an absolutely cute teenage boy that sat in front of us. Some of the musicians. This is some other musicians at a concert I went to, and they turned the lights off. And so this is how far I got before they turned the lights out. So sorry I didn't get your sketch done. You can see I wrote in the dark, and it's a little wibbly. Another church sketch when with Pastor Ashley. And here is, I took this class with Alyssa Burke of poppies, and me and my sketching friend Lori did this together. You cannot stop the birds of sorrow from flying over your head, but you can stop them from building a nest in your hair. Martin Luther. I was inspired by another artist, I'm sure, when I drew that. That was not an original thought from me. This was a little practicing on somebody else. I should have written down who it is. This is my sketching friend Lori. She's got beautiful white hair. And I sketched her while she was visiting. And then we went to the Franklin Park Conservatory. This is also in October, but it seems like it was a really cold day. And so we sketched indoors. They had blown glass and all the indoor flowers, orchids. I was trying to draw in the style of Ian Fennelly, I wrote here. Although I'm sure Ian Fennelly would not have looked like that. I cannot do his... He is an inspiration to me, but I can't stop myself from looking like myself. This is what I look like when I try to do any Ian Fennelly. This is Lori sketching in the conservatory, and this is the unfinished smokestack that I did that day. Curtis Stevenson, he goes to our church. He's a young guy, and he came up to me after church, and he said, I sketched you while you were at church, and here's me and my husband. And he had sketched us. I just thought that was so sweet. I love when I inspire other people to try sketching. This is the day that the balloon was shot down over Myrtle Beach, and we watched it on TV. And I was sketching a sailboat that day, and while I was sketching, I was watching TV, and this was happening on the television, and I drew it up there in the sky. It was in February of 2023. Another church sketch, and this was a concert. Russell Moore and Third Time Out that I did at a concert, and I did this on Procreate when I got home. I finished it, but I don't have that in my sketchbook. Oh, yes, I do. Here it is. Here's the guy's feet, and here's, after I put it on Procreate, I started with my pencil sketch, and I turned it into that using Procreate. That's awesome, isn't it? I love it. Forgotten all about that. Church sketch once again. But I love white hair in contrast to bright colors. And so when I saw that row of white-haired people, I told my husband, I got to go sit behind the white hairs. And so I sat behind them and sketched them during church. This is a trip we took. I often go upside down, but accidentally. The high wind storm in Nashville. And these are shoes that I bought on my trip. I like to draw or sketch something that I buy while I'm on vacation, and I always like to sketch the weather. There was stuff flying through the air from the roofs, and everything was very high wind mornings in Nashville that day. Here's a couple other church sketches. I got to where I curved the seats. And then I had to go sit behind this beautiful couple and sketch them. Aaron, Dina, and Celise. I found out their names after. Oh, and it is church sketch. So often I come home and I print these on a piece of watercolor paper, and then I watercolor them, and then I post the finished watercolored picture. But this is my black and white. Aha, another church sketch. That was finished on Procreate later. This was a drive to Parkersburg, West Virginia with Lori to sketch. This was an old house. It was pouring rain down. We had to sketch from inside the car. This is an old house on Julianne Street. This was from the coronation, I believe, of King Charles. And there was a trumpeter there with white hair. Love white hair again. And the Union Jack flag behind him. This was an old house we visited at Blennerhassett Island, Parkersburg, West Virginia. We stood in the circular driveway and did a sketch. Nice little urban sketch. Another Parkersburg, West Virginia sketch, Government Square. Whenever I see a clock, outdoor clock, it has to get into my sketchbook. This is Allen Creek Dam in Ohio. This was with the Urban Sketchers of Columbus. I sketched this. We got some white flowing water. One good thing about this sketchbook, it's a little bit toned, the paper is, so I can really make my white pop out with my white Posca pens, acrylic paint markers. This is at Buckeye Lake. One windy day in June. I wanted to do ships. I was determined. I live in Ohio, so we're kind of landlocked. There's not a lot of boats, but every time I got a chance to go see a boat, I would go. This was up at Hoover Dam also. This was at Hoover Dam. This was at Buckeye Lake. This was out sketching at the Park of Roses in Columbus with the Urban Sketchers. I was trying to do a really loose flower. And another Park of Roses sketch. This is in Charleston, West Virginia, their state capital. I've always admired it when I drove through. I got to use my gold watercolors on that, so it's very beautiful. I pulled into their parking lot and just did a quick sketch in the car. I think it took me maybe 45 minutes. But I really like the way that turned out. This is giving my dad a ride for his 90th birthday down to St. Mary's, Georgia. I have a yellow Kia car, as you can see. It was raining that day, and he rode along with me. This was a list of all the stuff we did while we were on our trip. We had a family destination vacation to St. Mary's, Georgia for his birthday. This was the foyer. Again, this is my gold watercolor paint. And a beautiful mural on this wall of the house we stayed in. And I did that while my dad did a puzzle across from me. Here's some of the historic churches in St. Mary's, Georgia. I went out and drove around and parked in front of each one. They had a little flyer that said, this is the addresses of these churches, and they were all within a mile of each other, very close together. But they were very similar architecture. But I really enjoyed reading about the history of each of these churches and sketching it. We actually went to church here on Sunday at the First Presbyterian Church. And this is Bruce's house, my Uncle Bruce's house. He has this figurehead from a ship that's hanging in his foyer, and his wife, Laverne, my Aunt Laverne, is a redhead. And I wondered if he picked this out because of her being this figurehead from the ship being a redhead. Had to sketch that. It's beautiful. This is inside of that historic First Presbyterian Church of St. Mary's, Georgia, one of the longest meeting churches. Here's my dad. I took my dad, and he had an orange cane. There's his cane sitting there. I enjoyed seeing that. And then I rented bicycles, a bicycle, and this is parked in front of the marsh. And you could just see these little sailboats parked out there the whole time. They never moved. They were just anchored out there. Camden Bike Rentals in St. Mary's, Georgia. Then we went to a turtle sanctuary while we were there. We learned so much about turtles at the Crooked River State Park Nature Center. If you're ever there, go see the turtle guy. There's a guy there that is so knowledgeable about turtles. And then my dad, with me, my dad and I and the family, there were 17 of us there, and we all drew his Navy ship. This is his Navy ship, and this is the Cumberland Princess Ferry at St. Mary's where we were staying. And so we all got together and drew that. Some of them were really funny the way they turned out because they aren't all artists. This is like my son-in-law and my nieces and nephews and people that never draw, but we do this kind of thing just for fun, kind of a party game thing. But this was mine, and I do have on my Instagram page, I think, everybody else that was there that night and their ships, and they're kind of funny if you want to look at them at my dad's 90th birthday party. And that is the end of the July 2022 to 2023 sketchbook flip through. Thank you for watching. Phyllis's How To Studio.